Did you know that human beings can't be trusted to know what we're passionate about and what really interests us? Hi, my name is Ria and I'm the founder of Hope Forge. I specialize in science-based online learning, digital packs, tips, tools, and coaching. And in today's video, I'm going to talk not just about how we are very unreliable when it comes to knowing what we really love and what we really want, but also how to hack through the bias so that we can connect with our skills, our passions, and be able to move forward. So first, what I want to talk about is the fact that we really don't often know what it is we love. And that's because we have so many cultural pressures coming in on us. The fact is that cultural brainwashing is really a thing. We are trained by the people in the world around us, and even though sometimes we can peer through it, a lot of that messaging still stays. So a lot of times we can go into a thing and think that we have an open mind, but because of how we have heard about that, and often how we have heard people like us tend to interact with an activity or even a book or a practice, we can say, that's not for me. So, a lot of times you'll have people say, men aren't good at showing emotions. Is that a chicken and an egg kind of comment? Are men not good at showing emotions because we don't let them show emotions because we keep telling them that they're not good at showing emotions? It's like chicken, egg, chicken, egg, chicken, egg. You see this where it's like, oh, certain people don't really like X form of art. For example, musicals, where only a certain small group of people in the world really love musicals. And no, that's actually not the case. More than gay men and white people love musicals, there are a lot of people who really enjoy watching people burst out into song. But we've got those stereotypes, and what we do is we brainwash the culture around us and ourselves by repeating those biases and those narratives over and over again. Now, the researchers at The Ohio State University, they actually were specifically looking at women in STEM. And women in STEM who maybe when they were young had experience doing a science fair project or really enjoyed going to a camp, but then later on in life thought, oh, I actually don't really like science. I'm not really a sciencey kind of person, despite all of those positive experiences, because they found that biases and cultural biases were getting in the way and had been getting in the way from the beginning. So the big question was, how do we hack that? How do we fix that? And they found two very effective solutions. One, which is future framing, so looking forward, and one that was past focused. So we have two different techniques for you today to use whenever you want to challenge yourself and say, maybe I am good at that. Maybe that's just something that I'm telling myself. Or, maybe I will be good at that and I need to stop repeating these very, very garbage narratives. So the first one is past focus. What you want to do if you are interested in revisiting an activity, a hobby, maybe it was a class or series of classes that you had when you were younger, and you're now thinking, maybe I didn't hate that. Maybe I wasn't horrible at that. What you want to do is you want to take a particular experience from one of those activities or times of your life. So if, for example, let's go and stick with that STEM example. Let's say that you were a young person who did a science fair project. And we can even say, let's say it was the volcano. We see that all the time in media, right? And you made the volcano and it exploded and you had a great time. Instead of going and looking at all the different science experiments you did, every single class of every day, you want to choose a standout memory that you can graft onto. And so what you want to do is take that standout memory, in this case, the science fair project, and imagine yourself at some point in the timeline of that science fair project. So for you, maybe it was the day of the science fair. where you bundled up your project and you drove it to your classroom or wherever it was being presented, and you started setting up your project, and when people were walking by, you triggered it and the foam went all over the place. Maybe if it wasn't the day of, perhaps you had a little bit of a snafu that had nothing to do with your project. You might want to do you working on it the evening before, or a moment when maybe you and a parent or a friend were working on it. So some point where you have a very strong positive memory, all right? It doesn't have to be fun, but it's not like, oh, this all went too freaking garbage and wrong. But it at least was, this happened and it, it was good, even if it was not my favorite thing in the world. And take that memory. And then what you want to do is imagine yourself in that moment. Now, I don't want you to imagine yourself as your 8-year-old self, your 15-year-old self, however old self in that moment going through things. That is a third person perspective where you are framing and looking in on what you did back then as if you were a different person. No, no. You are still yourself. You have grown, you have changed, you have learned, but that person back then is still you. It's you having evolved. And if you distance yourself from that person, this work will not be effective, this exercise. So what you want to do is sit, and you can close your eyes like I'm doing right now automatically, or you can open them. And you want to imagine that it is you as you are now, going through those experiences. So if it is the day of the science fair, you are standing there with your father or whoever else, and you are setting up that project, and you are excited to see the foam go, or you remember yourself putting all of the pieces together and try to feel them under your fingers, and go and imagine and remember the event as it was. And then when you're done, ask yourself, how did I feel about that? How did that experience actually make me feel? And if your answer is, I felt excited by it, then that's something you want to pursue. You want to examine your relationship to that activity and that field. If it is something like, well, it was okay, but I didn't really care, it wasn't very engaging, then you know for sure that your passion does not lie in that direction. So that is looking at the past. Now, if you are looking at something that is going to be happening in your future, you actually have something that's a little bit different, but in certain ways even easier. Imagine you have training, okay? You have training, and it is business training, and it maybe is some kind of change management thing that your company is bringing in, and you're frustrated because you're going to be losing a day's work, and maybe you don't even feel like it's necessary. So you have a lot of biases already going in, but you want to make the most of this. And you don't actually know. When we have experiences, if we keep an open mind, if we truly try to keep an open mind, we never know where each new experience leads us. So when you feel like you're starting to close up, this is a technique to use. You want to, sometime 24 hours or less before the event, so it doesn't have to be right before the event, you want to sit down or stand up, but you want to take some time to yourself, and then find 2 to 5 pictures, doesn't have to be of you, but of someone doing an activity, an everyday ordinary activity, but from the first person perspective. So you see that there is like a little bit of a trend here, first person perspective. So when you're looking up photos, and there are a ton of different resources for free photos, I'll put down a couple of them in the description as well, so that you can have like an easy place to look. You want to, let's say it's sweeping the floor. I mean everyday tasks, right? It can't be of a person, a stock bottle, smiling, being like, yay, I'm sweeping the floor, best thing ever. No, we don't care about them. We do not care about them. What we want is show the person's hands on the broom from the perspective of you seeing the hands on the broom and you being able to imagine those are your hands. Or as an example, you often see pictures where it's someone writing, on a notepad and it's just their hands. If their hands are similar to yours and you can imagine that they're your hands, then take one of those pictures as well if that works for you, and imagine that you are writing. And what this does is being able to visualize activities from the first person perspective, it actually helps us connect with the immediate moment, and it starts short circuiting that biased narrative that we hear. So, there's the phrase that you hear a lot, the peanut gallery, just like ignore the peanut gallery. We have a peanut gallery of all of these cultural biases and these experiential sort of shutting downs. And these two exercises in different ways, they shut down the peanut gallery. So you take your 2 to 5 pictures and just slowly taking your time, I would say at least a minute for each one, you want to look at the picture and then stare at it and visualize it and think that of yourself as doing that activity. And then when you're done, you're done. And what this does is imagery perspective, it's so closely linked to our frames of mind that we can actually change our mindsets and our frames of mind and how we process events just by looking at the right imagery and interacting with that imagery in the most powerful and brain hacking way. So those are my 2 tips on how to cut through the bias and the mental programming and connect with your passions that you didn't know you had. If you're curious for more, I have an online digital program called How to Hack Your Mental Programming, and that specifically helps identify your 3 core values, works through how your values actually affect your actions and your thinking, and then it walks you through how to use your core values as powerful tools instead of having them sometimes use you in your life, in your career, and otherwise. And this learning packet has actually printable posters and different things that you can print out or save on your computer and look at whenever you need a little bit of a brain trigger to get you back on track. All right, see you next time.